on the way to the hospital with Osbert Rixon to have his stitches removed. I held onto his arm, half-jokingly asking him, "What if, after seeing what I look like, you don't like me anymore?" He rubbed my calloused fingers, smiling indulgently. "I love your soul, not your appearance. Besides, you have been so good to me. If I dared to abandon you, even the gods wouldn't forgive me." I smiled because I have indeed been very good to him. Osbert lost his sight in a car accident. His parents also died in that accident. The day I met him, he was groping his way to the rooftop to take his own life. After realizing his intention, I slowly guided him away from the idea of ending his life, talking with him for a long time. Before we parted, Osbert said he liked my voice, asked for my contact information, and wondered if he could call me often in the future. I agreed. And so, naturally, we became a couple. Although I was happy, I also felt increasingly inferior, because Osbert's appearance is truly outstanding. He is tall and handsome, while I am short and fat. Standing next to him, I look so unattractive. Despite this, I worked hard to make money, holding 5 jobs. Soon, he underwent corneal transplant surgery. And today is the day to remove the stitches. As the doctor removed the bandages, Osbert finally opened his eyes slowly. The eyes that couldn't focus before now had a spark of life for the first time. "Corey, I can really see." He turned around in excitement. But the moment he saw me, he froze in place. To prevent Osbert from being too disappointed with my appearance, I specially did my hair and makeup today. I even wore a dress, which I rarely do. But the long hair couldn't hide the flesh on my cheeks, and the tight dress only highlighted my plump figure. My poor makeup skills made my plain looks even worse. I didn't dare to look into his eyes. Lowering my head, staring at my toes. Nervously, I asked, "Am I much uglier than you imagined?" 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. I waited for a long time but heard no response from him. The awkward atmosphere lasted until we got home. Before bed that night, he came to the bedside, finally saying his first words to me. "Corey." His eyes flickered, and he stammered. "You keep turning over at night, I can't sleep well, it's not good for my recovery. So, maybe I should sleep in the guest room for the next few days?" I was stunned. Suddenly, I remembered the Osbert who used to suffer from insomnia every night, insisting on holding me to sleep peacefully. But now, he says I disturb his sleep. I looked at him in silence for a long time, finally squeezing out a painful smile. "Okay, I'll get the guest room ready for you." After saying that, I turned and fled. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. The next morning, I got up, opened the door to the guest room, and found that Osbert had already left. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. He sent me a message on the phone, saying he was going out to look for a job. It was followed by a playful emoji with a kiss. I was amused by the emoji, and the gloom in my heart was lifted a bit. In the 2 years we've been together, I've always been the one bearing the household expenses. The community once offered special employment opportunities for disabled individuals, but Osbert refused. He said he didn't want to accept that he had really become a disabled person. He refused to learn Braille and didn't want to interact with people. Every day, he just liked to sit in the rocking chair, passing the time by listening to the tape recorder I bought him. I was always very worried about his mental state. Now that he was willing to go out on his own, it was a big surprise for me. If he could successfully find a job, and if we both worked hard to save money, it might be possible for us to establish ourselves in this city. But I looked at my ordinary self in the mirror and suddenly remembered yesterday at the hospital. When Osbert first saw me, the shock and disappointment in his eyes were hard to hide. I don't know if he still wants to stay with me now. I have no confidence. Osbert has a good appearance, and it didn't take long for him to find a job. In the following days, he left early and came back late. We rarely saw each other. Every time I wanted to sit down and have a good talk with him, he would find an excuse to leave. But soon after, he would apologize on his phone, saying the new job was busy and asking for my understanding. I was mentally exhausted by his erratic attitude, and several times I wanted to directly ask him what he really thought. But whenever I mustered the courage to ask clearly, he would always change the subject. I am a weak person. Some words, once not said in time, can never be said again. Gradually, I began to comfort myself, ignoring his indifference to me and his increasingly late return times. Later, I even turned a blind eye to the scent of perfume and lipstick stains on his clothes. I thought that if I gave him a little more time, the young man who once loved me and depended on me wholeheartedly would come back. What I didn't expect was that, in the end, it was I who voluntarily gave up on this relationship. The day I saw Hazel Larkin, I was delivering food in my uniform. It was a big order. The customer ordered 50 cups of milk tea, paid for express delivery, and requested it to be delivered within an hour. When I rushed to the destination, I found out the elevator was broken. The customer's phone couldn't be reached. Seeing that the order was about to be late, I didn't have time to think and hurriedly took the fire escape. The delivery uniform was stuffy and hot, and I was carrying a whole box of milk tea on my back, not daring to stop, climbing up to the 22nd floor in one go. When I delivered it, my legs were trembling. Unfortunately, the order was still late. To make matters worse, I ran into Osbert here. He was standing by the stairs, smoking, the cigarette between his fingers flickering. I was stunned. In the 2 years we had been together, I never knew Osbert smoked. Corey? He looked at me in shock. What are you doing here? I snapped back to reality, awkwardly pointing to the delivery box. I'm delivering food. He frowned suspiciously. What a coincidence. Seeing the doubt in his eyes, my heart trembled slightly. After 2 years together, I knew exactly what he was thinking. He was suspecting that I was stalking him. Indeed, the probability of delivering food to my boyfriend's workplace was too small. It really sounded like I was making an excuse. I fumbled around trying to find my phone to show him the order. Unexpectedly, he waved his hand. No need to show me, I believe you. Go ahead and deliver the food. I could only awkwardly put my phone away. Just as I turned around, a girl suddenly appeared, almost bumping into me. I was startled. I watched her skillfully jump onto Osbert, playfully acting coy. Osbert, you handsome devil. Why are you hiding here? Everyone's looking for you, the meeting is waiting on you. Osbert's face darkened, and he skillfully pulled her off, scolding, stand properly, don't touch me. The girl pouted. Why are you so cold today? Who upset you? I was stunned. I knew this face too well. She was Hazel Larkin, Osbert's first love. The one who abandoned him after a car accident. Osbert's phone used to be full of her photos. After he lost his sight and got together with me, I managed his social media for him. When I first logged into his account, I saw his feed was full of her photos, and I almost broke up with him in anger, thinking he was too timing. Later, Osbert coaxed and swore, holding me and explaining for a long time. He said Hazel abandoned him at his lowest point, which was the last straw. And that I pulled him out of despair, giving him a second chance at life. He also said that even if he could see again, he wouldn't want to look at her ever again. But now, behind my back, he found a job where he could see her every day. Hazel Larkin looked me up and down curiously, her eyes filled with undisguised surprise. Osbert, do you know this delivery person? Osbert shivered all over, as if suddenly remembering me, and looked at me in a panic. In the quiet stairwell, the two of them were dressed impeccably, clean and fresh, standing together like a perfect match. Meanwhile, I had been delivering food all day, my cheeks red and swollen from the sun, looking like I had just been fished out of the water. I didn't want to stand there and embarrass myself, so I turned to leave. But Osbert grabbed my wrist. He pulled me to his side and introduced me to Hazel Larkin. Karina Medlin, my girlfriend. Upon hearing this, Hazel's smile faded a bit. She looked back and forth between me and Osbert, her eyes showing the same expression as those people, understanding, mockery, and something thought-provoking. I instinctively lowered my head and hid behind Osbert. Seeing this, Hazel chuckled softly. Miss Medlin, I've heard Osbert mention you. Thank you for being by his side these 2 years and taking such good care of him. I'll find a chance to treat you to a meal and properly thank you." I was stunned. Thank me? Yes, she said matter-of-factly, as Osbert's future wife, I definitely need to thank you. Name your price. How much will it take for you to leave him? Enough. Osbert suddenly interrupted coldly. Miss Larkin, please have some self-respect. My wife will only be Karina. Don't humiliate yourself by pushing it. I looked at him in surprise. In my impression, Osbert was gentle and refined, always composed. Even if someone insulted him to his face, he would just smile it off and never lose his temper. In the 2 years we've been together, I've never heard a harsh word from him. Today, he seemed particularly abnormal. Hazel was also very surprised. Her eyes instantly reddened with tears, and she said aggrievedly, Osbert, how can you say that to me? But Osbert no longer looked at her, turning instead to speak gently to me. Let's go, Corey. I'll walk you downstairs. I remained silent, letting Osbert lead me downstairs. Seeing us leave, Hazel panicked and rushed to block our way. Osbert Rixon. You'd rather be with a delivery person than forgive me for leaving you back then? Osbert's grip on my hand tightened, causing me so much pain that my face turned pale, but he didn't seem to notice. Hazel's eyes were slightly red, looking pitiful. Osbert, I told you, no matter how much you mock or hurt me this time, I will not give up on you like I did 2 years ago, unless I die. Then go die. Osbert didn't look back as he dragged me downstairs. Hazel's face instantly turned ashen. She laughed sadly. Fine, that's what you said. Osbert didn't look at her again, just tightened his grip on my hand. I stumbled a few steps as he pulled me. Just as I managed to barely keep up with his pace, he suddenly stopped and looked up in Hazel's direction. Following his gaze, I looked up too. We saw Hazel pull out a utility knife from somewhere and stab herself in the stomach without hesitation. Her white dress was instantly stained with blood. Hazel! Osbert's heart-wrenching scream echoed in my ears. He rushed out, knocking me over without noticing. I tumbled down the stairs. Somehow, shards of glass were on the ground, and my hand landed heavily on them. The piercing pain immediately brought tears to my eyes. That day, Osbert didn't even look at me and hurriedly left with Hazel in his arms. I endured the excruciating pain and took a taxi to the hospital by myself. An hour later, we ran into each other again in the emergency room. Hazel had only suffered some minor injuries and didn't even need stitches. The doctor just treated her wound with iodine. When I entered, they were about to leave. Osbert's first reaction upon seeing me was anger. Hazel has depression. Do you have depression too? Are you learning to self-harm? Where did your previous sensibility go? I was in so much pain that I couldn't speak, only silently listening to his complaints. It wasn't until the doctor said that the tendons in my hand were severed and my arm was fractured and needed surgery that he looked at me in shock. Why didn't you tell me you were so badly injured? Seeing him show concern for me, Hazel quickly clutched her stomach and cried out in pain. Osbert instinctively went to support her. I sarcastically curled my lips and sighed, Osbert Rixon, let's break up. Osbert paused and looked at me in panic and confusion. But until I left, he didn't utter a word to make me stay. That day, with my plastered arm in a sling, I paid the bills, got my medication, and took the subway home alone. The subway was crowded, so I found a random corner to stand in, closing my eyes and dozing off. Suddenly, someone tapped me. I opened my eyes, puzzled. A shy, tall young man was standing in front of me, looking at me with concern. Miss, you should take my seat. You need more rest since you're pregnant. I stared at him blankly for a long time. Realizing he wasn't joking, I took a deep breath and sincerely told him, Thank you, but I'm not pregnant. Seeing he didn't understand, I patiently explained. I'm just fat, not pregnant. A light chuckle rippled through the surrounding crowd. The young man's face instantly turned beet red. He stammered, seemingly wanting to apologize, but I got off the train just in time. The little episode on the subway was soon forgotten. When I got home, the first thing I did was contact the landlord to terminate the lease and find a new place. Back then, to accommodate Osbert, I gritted my teeth and rented a high-end, soundproof apartment so that he, with his weak nerves, could rest well. Now that we've broken up, I no longer need to pay the exorbitant rent or work myself to the bone to earn money. Osbert didn't come home all night. I didn't sleep all night either. After slowly packing my things, I made myself a bowl of noodles and sent Osbert a message, telling him about the lease termination. He didn't reply, but half an hour later, he posted on his social media. The caption read, "Goodbye to the past, welcome to a new life." The picture was of him holding hands with Hazel. The comments were full of blessings and cheers. Osbert's friends seemed to know about him and Hazel, and everyone in the comments hoped they would get back together. Someone even bluntly said, "Bro, it wasn't easy for you. You finally cured your blindness, kicked that ugly girl out, and got back with our beautiful Hazel." The others agreed enthusiastically. Osbert replied with a playful emoji. At that moment, a little girl eating instant noodles quietly broke. What broke me wasn't them calling me ugly, but Osbert's attitude. In our relationship, I never thought he would be like those people, thinking I didn't deserve him. I looked up at the mirror opposite me. My face was puffy and tired, my hair dry and lifeless. I looked dull and indeed very unattractive. For the first time in 2 years, I took a good look at myself. Suddenly, the noodles in my bowl didn't taste good anymore. I used to not be a beauty, but I was sunny and confident, standing tall. Now, I was hunched over, with timid eyes, afraid to meet anyone's gaze. I thought all night but couldn't figure it out. I just had a relationship. How did I end up looking like this? The next morning, I called a moving company and moved directly to the new house I had chosen. The new house was in a remote area, far from the city center, and not very large. But it had the advantage of large, bright windows with great lighting. With a bit of decorating, it became exceptionally warm and cozy. Without financial pressure, I quit all my part-time jobs and had a good sleep on the soft bed in my new home. I hadn't slept this soundly in a long time. I slept for a whole day and night. When I woke up again, I found that my phone had automatically shut down due to a dead battery. As soon as I plugged it into charge, a series of missed calls and unread messages came through. Before I could check the messages, a call came in. I instinctively answered it. Osbert's voice, laced with anger, came through the receiver. "Moving out without a word and disappearing, Karina, are you a 3-year-old? It's one thing for you to move out, but why did you have to tell the landlord about our breakup? Do you know how embarrassed I was when the landlord called me to pay the rent? Do you find this fun?" I listened quietly until he finished, then responded calmly. "We've already broken up. Isn't it normal for me to move out?" As for the landlord, I said bluntly, I signed a rental contract before, and I've been the one paying the rent. Now that I've moved out, of course, I have to inform the landlord about my termination of the lease. "Did you think I would continue paying your rent?" He fell silent. Osbert had a strong sense of pride. I thought my straightforwardness would make him too embarrassed to say another word to me. Unexpectedly, he let out a cold laugh. "Karina Medlin, I don't believe you really want to break up with me." I frowned. He continued talking to himself. "You better not play hard to get with me, because I won't fall for it. If you come back now, I can pretend that nothing happened and we can live like we used to." At this point, his tone softened. "Corey, come back. I have a job now and can help you pay half the rent. I won't let you be as exhausted as before." I found it somewhat amusing but couldn't be bothered to say much. "No, thanks. I don't need your help with the rent. Living alone now, the pressure isn't that much. Besides, our breakup wasn't amicable, it was far from a peaceful resolution. Let's not contact each other again, or don't blame me if I cause a scene at your workplace." After saying this, I hung up the phone and blocked him. For a while after that, Osbert didn't bother me anymore. With some free time on my hands, I started looking for a new job. Before, in order to make quick money, I worked from the moment I opened my eyes each day, without even a moment to catch my breath. This left me with no time to improve myself or think about my future, and I never had any career planning. Now that I was free from financial pressure, I decided to find a job that I truly enjoyed. After leaving Osbert, my luck seemed to improve. Before I even sent out my resume, a new job opportunity found me. It all started because I wanted to get over my breakup, so I began eating healthily, working out, losing weight, and sharing my fitness journey on social media. Recently, one of my videos on YouTube unexpectedly went viral, and my account gained a lot of followers. Soon after, a media company reached out to me, saying that my transformation was striking and eye-catching, and they wanted to invite me to become their signed host. This was a pleasant surprise for me, and I agreed without hesitation. The next day, when I went to the company to sign the contract, I discovered that the boss of this media company was the same guy I had met on the subway. We stared at each other. In the end, he was the first to look away, a bit embarrassed. The guy looked very clean-cut and young, not at all like a company boss. I thought this and said it out loud. To my surprise, he was startled at first, then he laughed. "You're right, I'm not that old. I just graduated from college and am currently in the startup phase. Although the company is just getting started, I am very confident that I can make it successful. I hope you won't mind that our company is small." I laughed too. This guy was quite honest. After that, our conversation became much more relaxed. We discussed the terms of our cooperation and quickly signed the contract. The guy's name was Raymond, and he was 3 years younger than me. Despite his age, he had rich entrepreneurial experience. He started this company in his sophomore year of college and had already nurtured quite a few internet celebrities, making it a relatively mature media company. Raymond said that the internet celebrity market was nearing saturation. Beautiful influencers were emerging one after another, and the audience was gradually experiencing aesthetic fatigue. Nowadays, to stand out, many influencers fabricate eye-catching stories for themselves. But fabricated stories are ultimately fake. Fake things rarely resonate with the audience. The reason my YouTube account went viral was because my experiences, though dramatic, were real and tragic enough. Besides those who watched just for fun, countless girls who had been hurt by scumbags found resonance in my story. My fitness and weight loss journey, along with overcoming a breakup, also inspired these girls to start anew. After signing with the company, apart from daily operations, Raymond also devised a more comprehensive transformation plan for me. This included fitness shaping, yoga for poise, scientific dieting, beauty care, and more, to transform my image in all aspects. In less than half a year, I became the top fitness influencer, becoming the most inspirational makeover influencer in the hearts of many girls. By this time, I had a healthy and well-proportioned figure, a rosy and glowing complexion, a determined and confident look in my eyes, and a completely transformed aura. Even Raymond was pleasantly surprised when he saw me. With fame came numerous endorsement deals, and I was making money hand over fist. I transformed into the most commercially valuable influencer of the moment. This was less than a year after I left Osbert Rixon. One day, I suddenly realized that I hadn't thought about him in a long time. The day I saw Osbert again, I was accompanying Raymond at the mall to buy supplies for the company's annual event. Normally, this kind of task would be handled by his assistant, but the assistant was on leave to be with his wife for childbirth, so Raymond asked me to join him. After placing the order, he said he wanted to go to the supermarket to buy some daily necessities. That's where I ran into Osbert and Hazel. At first, Osbert didn't recognize me and stared at me blankly for a long time. Finally, he asked uncertainly, "Corey? Is that you?" I cursed my bad luck silently, nodded politely, and turned to leave. Unexpectedly, a crazy woman suddenly rushed out, waving her arms wildly as if to hit me. "You spiteful woman. Don't talk to my husband." Quickly, I grabbed a wine bottle to defend myself, my heart pounding with tension. This was the first time in my life I stood up for myself. Unfortunately, before she could get close, Raymond shoved her away with a broom he had just bought. As he took the wine bottle from my hand, he whispered, "Corina, you're a public figure now, you can't fight." I sighed in relief and wiped the sweat from my palms. Hazel seemed much heavier than before, her movements clumsy. Raymond's push was light, yet she staggered back a few steps like she was faking it, finally landing on the ground and clutching her stomach in pain. The whole sequence was so smooth and dramatic that I was left dumbfounded. During all this, Osbert just stood there, doing nothing to stop Hazel's madness, nor did he help her up when she fell. Finally, someone in the crowd exclaimed, "Oh no! She seems to be having a miscarriage. I stared in shock at the red stain beneath Hazel and shouted at Osbert. What are you standing there for? Take her to the hospital. Osbert snapped out of it, stiffly moving forward to pick Hazel up. Before leaving, he gave me a complicated look. But I didn't notice his expression. My mind was on Hazel's miscarriage. Even though she attacked first and Raymond was just defending himself, the supermarket's security cameras happened to be broken that day. There were many witnesses, but they had all dispersed. No one could prove our innocence. Leaving the mall, I felt uneasy, sensing that things wouldn't be so simple. Sure enough, by noon the next day, a video of my altercation with Hazel had gone viral. The headline read, CEO of influencer company beats up his wife for new lover, causing miscarriage in public. The video was edited, starting with Raymond pushing Hazel. It continued until the person filming shouted, "Oh no! She seems to be having a miscarriage." Then the camera zoomed in on the shocking bloodstains on Hazel's legs. The video ended abruptly. The comments section was in an uproar. Many recognized me and tagged me in the comments, demanding an explanation. The online mob was furious, calling me a shameless homewrecker. I wanted to make a call, only to find my phone was bombarded with messages and calls, making it unusable. Raymond couldn't reach me, so he came directly to my place, following the address on the contract. When I opened the door, I was wearing an apron, cooking. Raymond's expression changed several times, and finally, he managed to ask, "Are you okay?" Amid the loud roar of the old exhaust fan, I shouted back at him. "What did you say?" The situation has already come to this, there's no use in worrying, so I simply let Raymond stay for dinner. The food smelled delicious, but Raymond had no appetite. He was full of guilt. "I acted impulsively yesterday, causing you to get scolded." This fool, he was obviously dragged into this because of me, yet he's apologizing to me now. I was in a great mood and teased him with a smile. "If you really feel bad, why not help me pay the compensation?" Unexpectedly, he agreed seriously, nodding his head. "Of course, I won't let you suffer any loss." Seeing the boss take such responsibility, my heart warmed. I pushed the sweet and sour ribs towards him, just about to tell him that I had already obtained the complete video. Just then, the doorbell rang again. Raymond went to open the door. But after a long while, there was no sound of conversation. I walked over to take a look. Standing outside the door was Osbert Rixon. The two of them were glaring at each other in silence, the tension palpable. The moment he saw me, Osbert's eyes flashed with amazement and admiration. But the next second, his face changed, looking back and forth between Raymond and me. Raymond's face didn't look good either, his whole body tense, fists clenched tightly. Afraid they might start fighting, I made an excuse to have Raymond wash the dishes and sent him to the kitchen first. Reluctantly, Raymond went to the kitchen, and only then did Osbert turn his head, looking at me gently. "Corey, you look so beautiful now, I almost didn't recognize you." I kept a cold face. "Do you need something?" Seeing my cold attitude, Osbert's expression dimmed for a moment. He glanced inside, his voice hoarse and struggling. "Are you together with him?" I crossed my arms and gave a cold laugh. "It's none of your business." Osbert's eyes darkened further. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "Aren't you going to invite me in to sit?" I was impatient. "If you have something to say it directly. You should know you're not welcome here." He smiled bitterly. "Corey, we were in love at least, even if we broke up, there's no need to be so hostile, right?" I had no patience to listen to his disgusting words and moved to close the door. Only then did Osbert panic, hurriedly holding the door, and said, "Corey, I know you've been feeling down because of the online issues recently, but don't worry. Hazel said that as long as you apologize to her and pay some compensation, she'll speak up for you online and help restore your career." I looked at him in shock. "Compensation?" He nodded, confidently holding up 5 fingers. "Not much, just 5 million. With your current income, you can totally afford it." I laughed in anger. After knowing him for so long, it's the first time I realized how thick-skinned this man could be. "Ridiculous, you cheated during our relationship, now you and your girlfriend are scheming to ruin my career, and you still want me to apologize and pay you? Osbert Rixon, do you have any shame left?" He was stunned, then became angry out of embarrassment. You're slandering me. I'm here to help you. How can you turn the tables on me? I sneered. Who is turning the tables? You know very well. I calmly pulled out a few pictures from my tablet and handed them to him. You and Miss Larkin just recently went for a prenatal checkup, which showed the fetus was deformed. Later, you accompanied Miss Larkin to a shady clinic to get abortion pills. And not long after that, you both went to that supermarket pretending to accidentally run into me. Osbert's expression changed. I continued. The supermarket's surveillance is usually very good, but it just happened to be broken that day. There were many onlookers in the supermarket that day, but more than half were extras you hired, and quite a few elderly people thought we were filming a scene. But you seem to have forgotten, in modern society, everyone has a mobile phone, everyone can be a media outlet. A few elderly people, wanting to record their experience as extras, had their friends film it for them in advance. Osbert instinctively blurted out. Impossible, I specifically told them not to take pictures. I just smiled without saying anything. His face changed several times, finally gritting his teeth and asking, "What do you want?" Simple, publicly apologize to me online, admit to your blackmailing scheme, or I'll release the evidence of your setup. Osbert's face turned livid, gritting his teeth without saying a word. Suddenly, he stared at my tablet, abruptly sneering, "Release the evidence?" I took a cautious step back. Just as I was about to close the door, Osbert forcefully held the door and rushed in, snatching the tablet from my hands and running away. His arrogant laughter echoed in the hallway. Let's see what evidence you have to threaten me now. I shook my head helplessly, turned around, and went back to my room to export the video from my computer. Osbert Rixon is an idiot. He was so busy talking to me just now that he didn't notice the camera installed at my door. The camera clearly recorded our conversation just now. I put this video and various other pieces of evidence I had organized into a folder, backed it up on a USB drive. His stupid brain could only come up with the dumb idea of stealing the tablet to destroy the evidence. But how could I not have a backup of such crucial evidence? I organized all the evidence and then had Raymond find a top-notch legal team to sue Osbert Rixon and Hazel Larkin for extortion and defamation. At the same time, I posted the complete video from that day at the supermarket online, as a clarification. That day, I didn't leave immediately but found recordings from other areas of the mall, identifying dozens of people who might have entered the supermarket during that time. I contacted them one by one, explained the situation, and finally got this complete video from an elderly lady who was trying to become a social media influencer. Once the video was uploaded, public opinion instantly reversed. Then, I struck while the iron was hot and wrote a long post. From my relationship with Osbert Rixon, to his emotional cheating after regaining his sight. And how Hazel Larkin knowingly became the third party, and how the two conspired to extort money from me. From start to finish, every detail was covered, with genuine feelings. I attached all the bills I paid during the relationship with Osbert Rixon. From daily expenses to expensive medical bills, totaling over $300,000. Because I was such a fool, the onlookers nicknamed me Miss ATM, or Missa for short. Oh my god, isn't this a honey trap? This Ms. Larkin must have watched too many palace dramas. Eye-opener, there are many freeloaders, but it's my first time seeing one freeloading so hard. Miss A is so nice, pretty and rich, and she even helped the freeloader fix his eyes. Bro, why couldn't you just stay faithful? Didn't spend a dime during the relationship, and after breaking up, he still wanted Miss A to pay the rent. When Miss A got popular, he extorted $5 million. How shameless can this guy be? One cheats, the other knowingly becomes the third party, they are a perfect match. Best wishes to the scumbag and the shameless woman. This time, netizens unanimously scolded Osbert Rixon and Hazel Larkin, and the heat remained high. According to Raymond, the company had already fired the two of them for their negative impact. After losing their jobs, they tried to start live streaming to gain sympathy. But due to reports from righteous netizens, their accounts were permanently banned by the authorities. During this period, Osbert changed several phones to call me, all of which I blocked. Unrelenting, he even came to harass me several times. To avoid him, I had to cancel my lease and temporarily hide out of town. A few days later, I posted a criminal judgment, making this farce reach its peak of attention. Osbert Rixon and Hazel Larkin were sentenced. Because the amount of extortion was too large, they were sentenced to 10 and 15 years respectively, plus a hefty fine of hundreds of thousands. After the trial, Osbert wept bitterly in the courtroom. Ignoring Hazel's furious curses, he eagerly spoke to me. "Corey, I was wrong, I shouldn't have been so indecisive and hurt you. I didn't actually want to break up back then. I really wanted to marry you. But I couldn't bring myself to come find you. Hazel has always been mentally unstable, always threatening me with suicide. I couldn't ignore her, including later when she forced me to extort you. It was all her idea. I've regretted it for a long time. Give me another chance, let's start over. I promise I'll never disappoint you again, I'll never be indecisive and fall for someone else." Seeing my indifference, he cried and begged me. "Weren't you the one who loved me the most? You saved money for me, moved to the most expensive neighborhood for me, lived frugally, worked several jobs a day, and endured my bad temper." He said so much, seemingly trying to rekindle my love for him. But I only felt a tightness in my chest. I once thought he was not only blind in his eyes but also in his heart, unable to see my devotion and sincerity. It turns out, he could see it all along. Raymond, seeing my distress, suddenly interrupted him. "You've said so much about Corey's goodness to you, but what have you ever done for her?" Osbert stared blankly at him, stammering, For her, I. He couldn't say anything. Raymond snorted coldly, took my hand, and left. As the courthouse doors closed, the sounds of cursing and sobbing behind us abruptly stopped. I looked down at Raymond holding my hand, dazed. His palm was sweating, but his face remained calm and composed. "Raymond," I called him softly, "what did you just call me?" He didn't dare look at me, but his ears turned bright red. "Get in the car, I'll take you home." The ride was silent. When we arrived at my apartment building, he stopped the car and locked the doors, suddenly asking me with a bit of grievance. "They all can call you Corey, but I can't?" I was amused by this silly man. I didn't answer but leaned over and kissed his lips accurately. Soft and sweet. With the unique innocence and purity of a young man. His body trembled slightly at first. After a few seconds of tension, he aggressively took the lead. Young people really have amazing lung capacity. As I was being kissed into a daze, I seemed to hear him whispering in my ear. "MMM. I suddenly think, calling you honey, might be nice too."